Last night marked the 55th night of riots in Portland. I think it was the 55th night. It's getting hard to count because 55 nights, kind of crazy. But this one was special. The government of Portland literally joined with the violent mob, targeting federal agents demanding they leave their own jurisdiction. Why, yes. Mayor Ted Wheeler himself came out and said that the feds must leave, stood there on the front lines on federal property as this violent group was throwing commercial grade fireworks and trying to knock down the barricades, ultimately doing it, I guess. I believe that's what happened. And he was right there with them. And then he called it urban warfare. I kid you not, the mayor of Portland said, this is urban warfare. Now, I'll tell you why this is so serious. Mayor Ted Wheeler, you went down to the courthouse. You engaged the feds with your group and then called it urban warfare. Dare I say, you started it. And yes, I truly believe Mayor Ted Wheeler of Portland, the government, is trying to make things as bad as possible. I believe he's trying to dramatically escalate the situation. And you don't got to take my word for it. You can form your own opinion based on what he tweeted last night. He said, "This afternoon, I was made aware of concerns within the community that federal agents may be authorized to use live ammunition on demonstrators this evening. Given the deployment of federal agents to other American cities and the clear escalation of the federal government, this information was alarming. I have spoken with U.S. Attorney of Oregon, Billy Williams, who assures me that the federal government has no plans to use live ammunition on Portlanders tonight and that such an order would be unlawful. Nevertheless, I am sharing this information publicly out of an abundance of caution. If you plan to demonstrate tonight, please be safe." And there it is. The mayor, for no reason, put out a tweet saying there are rumors they are authorized to use live ammunition. It's just a nonsensical rumor. Why would you say this? Well, I'll tell you what I think. Just my opinion. The first tweet he puts out has got 2,000 retweets and just under 7,000 comments, meaning he got ratioed hard for this. His replies, where he says they claim that they won't do this, do not get seen in your normal timeline. Because there are replies to Mayor Ted Wheeler, typically you are much more likely to see him saying the community believes federal agents will use live ammo on you. That's all you see. Now, some people might click it, explore it, and then say, oh, okay, he's saying no. But then even in the last tweet, he says, out of an abundance of caution, as if it is real life, that federal authorities, who have been restrained now for almost 2 months, would decide to start firing live ammo on a crowd of people because they're throwing fireworks. No, I will tell you, as they throw fireworks, what do we get from federal law enforcement? Escalation in kind, tear gas, less lethal munitions, because they understand the fireworks likely won't do all that much damage, but they do have to put out all the fires, literal fires. Ted Wheeler, he showed up and he got roasted. He got attacked. They demanded his resignation. And all he did was make it worse, make everything worse. But I truly believe that's his intent. Take a look at this story from Katu 2. Tear gas deployed, Mayor Wheeler in the middle, fire outside federal courthouse. Okay, I want to read this for you. I also have a thread that shows you, a Twitter thread showing you all that happened with Mayor Ted Wheeler. And I got to tell you, man, the government of Portland has now joined insurrection against the federal government. A lot of people, I see a lot of these lefties getting mad because I'm saying insurgent and insurrection and stuff, but it's difficult to figure out how to describe a group of people that keeps going to the federal courthouse and attacking it. I understand it's not like they're showing up with live ammo or anything, but they're showing up with weapons and explosives. That's just a reality. Mortar, shell, explosive, commercial grade fireworks are extremely dangerous. They spray fireballs everywhere. So you can start fires with them, especially if you throw it inside. The feds are defending their courthouse. Now, if you follow most progressives and even the mainstream media, they won't tell you this. They won't show you the photo. Look at this photo right here. What we're seeing is an overhead shot. Here's the street. Here are the people. This is a massive fire covering the entire sidewalk. The fires that are being set are huge. And the feds typically come out, in many videos, you'll see them come out with fire extinguishers to put out fires. And then they push back the crowds. The crowds then attack back and then claim that they're being repressed. The mayor joined them, publicly defended them. The attorney general is suing the federal government on behalf of the violent mob. And the mayor is lying about what's going on and trying to convince people live ammo will be used. There's only one reason I think he would bring up live ammo. A bunch of people start spreading the rumors. Hey, the mayor said it. A bunch of people start getting scared that the feds will pull out their sidearms or rifles. We've seen photos. Yeah, that's actually happened. And so they'll bring live ammo as well. I would not be surprised to hear that many of these far leftists are in fact armed with live ammunition themselves. No one's using it because it's not at that point. But it's only a matter of time, especially with Ted Wheeler shocking people, saying they might use live ammo out of an abundance of caution. Just be safe. And eventually someone hears a bang and somebody shoots. I don't know if I'll ever get to that point, but I got to be honest. I didn't think we'd ever get to the point where we'd have 55 nights of attacks. I don't know if every single night was an attack on the courthouse, but nearly 2 months of ongoing riots with these people attacking a federal courthouse, trying to breach inside and burn it down. And yes, there's videos and photos of them trying to cut open the doors, trying to burn down the barricades. I didn't believe that would happen. I didn't think we would get to this point. I mean, so soon, I suppose. Well, I think that's unfair. Part of me expected a lot of this to happen. I've said it before. But it does kind of feel surreal. So if now we're hearing someone might draw live ammo, the optimism bias in me says, no way, right? That can't really happen. Someone pulling out a gun and shooting. It can, man. It really can. Let's read this, and then I want to show you the thread depicting what happened with the mayor. A pile of debris burned outside the federal courthouse late Wednesday night as Ted Wheeler attended a nearby protest. Nearby, he was literally at the courthouse. That's so insane, man. Tear gas was deployed at around that time. This is crazy. KATU is desperately trying to protect Ted Wheeler. They say tear gas was deployed around that time and fireworks exploded near the courthouse. Let me fix this for you. A pile of debris burned outside a federal courthouse late Wednesday night as Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler attended and stood on the front lines. There's video of him standing in front of the courthouse. This is nuts. A KATU crew who was near the mayor when the tear gas was deployed said it was likely Wheeler got caught in the gas. He literally did. One protester, Ako Sarfo Katanka, told KATU she was with the mayor when the tear gas came. Oh, for sure he got gassed. I was standing there with him, within 3 feet of him. We don't need to read this. That's ridiculous. I have photos and videos to show you. When he was asked how long he planned to stay with the protest, he said as long as needed. Indeed, he told one protester who was concerned the tear gas would start flying when he left the protest, "I'm not going to leave. If you get gassed, I'm getting gassed." You know what? This is a thread from Mike Baker. This article is trash. Let's pull up this thread. Mike Baker, he is a correspondent for the New York Times, said Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler is entering the protest crowd right now. People are already confronting him. I will not use the word protest to describe this. Protest is a favorable word for the left, but it is not fair considering they are showing up to the federal courthouse and attacking it. So we'll call it a violent mob. People have surrounded the mayor, cursing at him and calling for his resignation. He doesn't deserve to speak. He's an effing fascist. This one says, tear gas Ted has got to go. In a listening session in the middle of the crowd, Wheeler says he is doing everything possible to get federal officers out of Portland. And that's important right there. He has joined the front line. He has said, we are doing everything in our power to strip them of their own jurisdiction. So I know it has a historical, it's a historical analog to say Fort Sumter. I understand that it's not nearly as severe. We're not seeing 34 hours of cannon fire, but it is 55 nights of violent riots. So there are parallels. We can say the severity is low. I think it's more important to say the only reason, in my opinion, that the severity is much lower than you'd expect historically is because of information technology. This is propagandistic warfare. The goal is to produce video and photo that makes it look like the people are victims. That's the intent, because they want to get as many people on their side as possible so they can take control of all branches of the government. I don't think it's going to work. I honestly believe this is going to absolutely help Donald Trump. I know the polls are against him, but I'm gonna go over this in a second. I'm gonna show you the data. Or not necessarily. Well, maybe some data, but the point is, I believe that what they're doing in Portland is going to backfire in their faces to an extreme degree, unless they really want to get Trump elected. People in the protest crowd react to Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler, saying he won't commit to abolishing the police. And they all boo. Let me make this clear for you. The violent mob that has been besieging the federal courthouse are demanding the police be abolished. Gone. Just gone. Not defund, abolished. And the media is protecting them. And Ted Wheeler is on the front lines with them. The mayor of Portland, the Portland government, on the front line. Now, he disagrees. That's fair. But they're trying to remove the feds from their own courthouse. As he speaks, protesters have projected a list of demands in the building behind him. They say, the next tweet, I have to pause and give a shout out to the sign language interpreter. Yeah. Wheeler, who is also police commissioner, says he takes responsibility for the actions of police officers and wants to harness the anger of protests to work together to make change. Ted Wheeler has now moved to the steps of the Justice Center to address the crowd of thousands. Wheeler begins to speak, boos, and then cheers when he says he demands the feds leave. There it is. He stood atop the steps in front of the entire crowd as they seek to strip the federal authorities of their own jurisdiction. And he said, I agree. They mentioned that he's in the middle. He's talking to people. He's still talking to people. Now, here's an important video. Meanwhile, the protesters down the street have started shooting fireworks at the federal courthouse. Down the street, it's one gigantic crowd, to be fair. But it does seem like a lot of people are trying to protect Wheeler to make it seem like he's not present and not supporting this. Protesters called on Wheeler to join the front lines at the federal courthouse, and he's going there. And here he is. Don't tell me that he was at a different protest. Here it is. Here's video. He's standing in front of the barricades, and in the audio, the feds are saying, you are on federal property. You must disperse. The mayor himself. Call it what you want. I don't know what you want to call it. Call it what you want. So now we can see, things really escalated. People are throwing things at the mayor. Now, this is where I think this is a dramatic escalation, man. Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler says the tear gas stings, says egregious overreaction from the feds, calls it urban warfare. I'm sorry. Who was it who marched to the property of the federal courthouse? Who was it who engaged the feds? You saw, I just pointed out the video where they were throwing commercial fireworks at the building. I understand it's not like, they're lobbing literal dynamite or something. And the feds aren't shooting live bullets. So I find it kind of funny when the feds throw, say, like a flashbang, and they go, oh no, they're throwing explosives at us. And I'm like, you're throwing explosives at them. Like, what do you mean? You started it. You threw the explosives first. So when they respond with a flashbang, I'm pretty sure flashbangs are actually safer than mortar shell commercial grade fireworks, which actually spew fireballs and could actually seriously injure you. You can get injured by these flashbang things too, but they're, as far as I know, not nearly as severe as a mortar shell. So now Ted Wheeler is saying urban warfare. Okay. Urban warfare, you started. Now, I know Ted Wheeler, the mayor of Portland, wasn't there every night. This is, I believe, his first night coming down. But here he is. He's chosen a faction. He has chosen the side of the insurrection. So in the past few days, when I said that it's kind of like a letter of marque, which represents private, it was the colonial era, or it was the high seas era, where private ships would be given a letter of marque so they could attack foreign nation supply lines, and then the governments could feign, non-involvement. Oh no, it was a privateer, it was a pirate, but the letter of marque protected them, and it was a commission essentially. The idea is that if the government won't stop these people, if they won't indict these people, if they won't prosecute them, they're basically giving them free rein. But when the AG of Oregon sues to defend them, now you've got state-sponsored groups attacking the Fed. Well, we've leveled up, everybody. Now you have city government politicians joining the fray. Now it's full-on state versus Fed, period. That's it. It is Oregon governmental officials fighting with these people against the federal government. Domestic insurgency, uprising, civil war, I don't know. Call it whatever you want. But it is not a riot. It is well beyond that when the mayor gets involved. So here's what I want to do. I want to highlight this tweet from Mike Cernovich because he made a point that is somewhat counter to a point I've made. He says, for all the Trump cucks saying sending on feds is bad optics, run a focus group on this. Public highly supports government action. Americans are tired of dirtbags and terrorists taking over cities. This is in response to Andy No saying Jeff Paul, who works with Seattle Public Schools, is suing Trump, Chad Wolf, and others after he was hurt in the riots. I believe Cernovich is correct. Initially, I think my opinion was wrong. I felt that the trap was laid for Trump with the feds and it was working. And then following what was going on and seeing the reaction from the feds and how they've actually kept, they've been a bit reserved relative to how severe they could be. And I'm not saying they're not, firing less lethal munitions or, hitting somebody. I do believe that Trump has the upper hand here. And I think Trump knows what he's doing. I think Trump isn't paying attention to stupid Twitter polls. I think Trump is looking at what's actually happening. And I believe this is going to help Trump. I really, really do. I believe Cernovich is right. You see, people in the suburbs are scared of this kind of stuff. And it doesn't come to their neighborhoods. But when they see this action, they see the violence. We know from this study that it tends to hurt Democratic politicians. Peaceful protests help the protesters. Democrats are supporting the protesters. These are violent riots, and the average person doesn't care. I believe there's going to be a lot of people, a lot of suburban, urban, whatever, who are going to say things like, Trump's secret police, they're attacking peaceful protesters. I'm sure most people, as we've learned throughout history, are going to say something more akin to, I just want it to end. Can the government just arrest these people and make it stop? I don't care. Just make it stop. That's it. So when you hear these stories, I think he's right. The point I'm trying to make, when Trump did nothing in response to the riots and the looting across the country, they wanted him to come out so they could bait him with the Insurrection Act and say, aha, he's a dictator. They're trying to do it now. Donald Trump said it's up to the states to get control of this. The feds here are only defending their own courthouse. Trump did the bare minimum to say, we are doing what the Fed is supposed to do in protecting our jurisdiction, and these cities have run rampant and gotten crazy, and crime is skyrocketing. That's the message that makes it to the suburbs. Murders are on the rise. Shootings are on the rise. Violent riots are ripping across our nation. And Trump is sending out law enforcement to clean up the mess that these cities would not do. I believe this might actually be a power play, or at the very least lend itself to the victory of Republicans in the Senate and Congress. I think that's the plan. You see, who did Trump lose in 2018? Why, he lost the suburbs. That's right. Many suburbs that went for Trump flipped and went for Democrats. I believe it was 31 districts. They were Trump districts in 2016 and elected Republicans, but then 2 years later brought in Democrats. That gave Democrats the House majority, but not the Senate. Trump knows it's not just his race. It's a race for many Republican senators and for Republicans in Congress. So what happens now? Trump needs people to believe that the Democrats have done a bad job and it's not just about him. So if you live in one of these cities and you're seeing ongoing clashes, riots, highway shutdowns, you're thinking to yourself, I want this over. I want it to go away. So check it out. Down in the polls, Trump pitches fear. They want to destroy our suburbs. It's very, very interesting to say that it's because he's down in the polls. I believe Trump has been targeting the suburbs for years, regardless of the polls, but interesting framing. But Trump is apparently saying, quote, they want to destroy our suburbs. People have, here's what they said. Here's what he said. Trump recently warned they want to destroy our suburbs. People have worked all their lives to get into a community, and now they're going to watch it go to hell, he said from the South Lawn of the White House. Trump has been issuing increasingly dire and outlandish warnings about what Democrats will do to the suburbs. He warned suburbanites will face rising crime and falling home values if they elect Joe Biden. The message? Be afraid, be very afraid. I believe Trump is correct. I believe he's correct because under Democratic control, mayors like Ted Wheeler join in the violence. Let me make it very clear for you one last time. I'm sorry for repeating myself on this one. It is not a violation of your rights when federal law enforcement exists. I know this may be news to some people. If the mayor leads a group of people to the feds to engage them in conflict, the mayor himself started it. I know he didn't literally start it, but the buck stops with him. He's the executive of this jurisdiction. He is leading these people into violence. When I see that, when I see all of these Democratic politicians defending this, I got to say, man, where's Joe Biden to condemn the violence? Where is he? Apparently hiding in his basement. So I think Trump is right. I don't know about destroying the suburbs, but I can show you this. Mother Jones says Biden wants to desegregate the suburbs. Naturally, Trump is furious. Oh, so you're saying they do want to, at the very least, change the suburbs? They say desegregate. And they use this image of like what looks like the 1950s white family. That's insane, man. But here we go. From Politico. White House to scrap fair housing rule as Trump bids for suburban voters. Administration officials briefed select congressional staff on Wednesday on the new proposal. So here's what I think is happening. Mayor Ted Wheeler and the Democrats are insane. They've been protecting this for too long, and so is the media. And the only thing these suburbanites who flipped against Trump are seeing now are violent images, and they don't care who's starting it. They're just saying, keep it out of my neighborhood. So Trump says, I am going to send in the FBI, the DEA, the ATF to help with the surge in violent crime across this country. And our feds will be there to defend our jurisdiction. And guess what? The voters in the suburbs now have a choice to make. Are they going to vote for the left, which has consistently supported this, or Donald Trump, who is fighting against the violence and trying to defend these areas? Maybe it won't work enough. Maybe it's a numbers game. I don't know. But I will tell you, the other night on the IRL podcast, we talked about a Cato Institute poll. 62% of people are scared to speak their opinions. The only group that felt they could speak their opinions without fear was the far left. Now that doesn't make sense, does it? So the poll said far left, left, center, right, and far right. Now they call it strong conservative, strong liberal, liberal conservative, and moderate. If only strong liberal feels they can speak up without reprisal, it stands to reason the media that you're seeing, the brand marketing you're seeing, is skewed ridiculously away from what regular Americans actually think and want. We'll see how things play out come November. But I'll tell you what, man, Trump is making the right moves. I believe it. I'll see you all at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out.